Hi. Now I know you've probably been told that succulents can't survive the British weather. What if I were to tell you that there's one succulent that not only survives the British weather, but thrives in it? Let me introduce you to Sempervivum. So it is true that most succulents will sulk if left out in the British weather. They will rot and they will look awful and they'll be slimy. However, Sempervivums are, although they are succulent, they're actually an alpine plant. So consequently, they're used to not only European weather, but they're used to frost and snow and whatever the weather throws at it. And what's more is, if you have a look here, the colder weather brings out the colors. So it seems to prefer being stressed in colder weather. And the way it's designed is the leaves are off, although succulent, are flat and the roots are shallow, and any rain or whatever will just bypass it and go into the ground. So I'll show you later the correct kind of soil, because that really does determine the success of your Sempervivum. But yeah, this is a little beauty, and I want to show you something as well. So this here is a Sempervivum that I planted a couple of years ago. Well, I planted it last year actually. And this piece of ground here, this part of the garden, actually had a lot of rubble. The soil was really poor. And from the previous owners, I don't know if they've done some building work or what, but it was just a mess. So we cleared all the rubble away, but I knew I wanted succulents here. I knew I wanted alpine plants here. So I said to my husband, let's just put pebbles down, because I want to make it look a bit like a riverbed with stepping stones. So Sempervivum now actually means ever living, and it's a good name for this. So this plant is used to freezing temperatures. It's used to sudden rain. It's used to that quick freeze and then thaw process. So, and as you can see, so it's actually also called hens and chicks. So if you look here, the bigger ones here are the hens, the smaller ones here are the chicks. And the cycle is that the hens produce the chicks, and as the chicks get bigger, the hens die, and they can leave a hole. But what you do is you just take it out, and then you put one of the chicks back in its place. And I'll show you something here as well, is they actually have very, very shallow, they actually have very, very shallow roots. So if I was to pull this out, I could plant it anywhere else in the garden and it'll just grow. So as you can see, I've got this pot here. It's actually a little jug, purely decorative, so I'm not going to leave it outside in the open elements, but it will go in my greenhouse in winter, but it'll be perfect for a spring display. And I think the colors in this will go perfectly with these beautiful mauvey purpley tones in the edges of the leaves, and I think it'll look really pretty. Now the first thing you want to do is you want to prepare your pot. So if you buy a cash pot or whatever, if you're going to be planting directly into it, you want to make sure that you drill a drainage hole. So this one's already been pre-drilled, as you can see, and that will create drainage. Now normally I would like to put 2 or 3 holes in there, but I was worried about this pot cracking further. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a drainage layer in the bottom of it for added drainage. So I've got this gravel here. I always keep this on hand. So it's not expensive, it's just grabbing. You don't need decorative things. This is purely
stones to put at the bottom to create a drainage layer, so that when it does rain, and we all know it can rain a lot in England, when it comes, it comes. So we want to create a drainage layer. The other reason is Sempervivums actually don't need that much soil. So this way we can build it up a bit, create a drainage layer, but at the same time we'll be using less soil. When it comes to soil, a lot of the houseplant mix, or the mixes you get, are far too loamy, far too rich, and so I tend to mix my own. And this is a mixture of normal houseplant soil, and then in it I've mixed some perlite and some more gravel and stones. I've even put a little bit of coir in here, so that you get this nice, light, fluffy, well-draining mix. So we're going to put that in there. So that should fit in nicely there. Now, move this out of the way a minute. So when you take the Sempervivum out, this one's actually got a slug in there. Can you see? The slug has made its home underneath. It's not hurt the Sempervivum at all. Obviously it's not very paddable, but it's used it as a little bolt hole. So I'm just going to gently loosen some of the soil off here. And the reason being is it's not actually that compacted, because as I say, Sempervivum roots are very shallow. But this is the type of soil they give them when they in a nursery, and it's a bit generic, and I think that this possibly doesn't have quite enough drainage now that the Sempervivum has established and is grown. So I'm going to move some of the soil and loosen the roots a little bit, and then I'll have to rehome that guy somewhere else soon. This pot will be perfect. It'll spread out nicely to the edges. But I want to add another Sempervivum. So I've got this little one as well, different sort of Sempervivum, different color. I think this beautiful lime green with the little soft pinky edges will look really gorgeous with this. And I love the way these little rosettes form here. Those are really, really gorgeous. So let's move this guy out of his pot as well. Now this one is quite pot bound. So the thing is about Sempervivums as well, being an alpine plant, if you've got like a rockery, or you've got a brick wall with gaps in, you know, this doesn't need a lot of nutrients, and it doesn't need a lot of moisture. So feel free to just stick them in any gaps, and they will happily fill it out and spread throughout your wall or whatever it might be. But I think that will do there. So I think what I'm going to do is put that towards the back of the pot, and I'm going to have this one at the front. But I'm gonna split this open and show you. You see these little chicks? Now all of these will root. If I was to take one of those little chicks, see, it's got this shiny little thing, this tiny little stem here, but even it's got roots, but even if it didn't, you could just put that in a little hole and it'll grow. So, but I want to bring this all forward towards the front of the pot, so I'm going to put that in there. Yeah, I think that'll look good. So let me backfill with some soil. I'm going to put some towards the back there first of all. Place that in there. and then fill it in. And pack that down a little bit, and then I'm going to put these guys at the front like that. Don't forget this little one. Right. Now this is at this point to say that these guys have been in my greenhouse all winter, and they haven't had a drop to drink, not at all. I don't tend to water my succulents in winter, because most of them, succulents not included, but most of them, Sempervivums not included, but most of them go dormant in the winter months. So if they get watered, they end up rotting because they're asleep essentially, and nobody has a drink of water when they're asleep. So these have not had a drink all winter, and as you can see, they're looking just fine. Now, so I'm going to give this a good water, because it's had nothing to drink in a good couple of months, since November actually. And give it a really good water. Also wash the jugger down a little bit. Now, as I'm sure you noticed there, the minute I put water in there, now some succulents the water would pool, but with Sempervivums it doesn't. It goes through it. It's very good at draining the water through it and to the bottom where its roots are, which is another good attribute of the Sempervivums. Now, I'm not just going to rely on the gravel in there. I'm going to add some more decorative stone to it to keep any moisture from the bottom leaves. So I've got, let me just take this away. So I've got these beautiful decorative stones here. Now I think it's a kind of quartz maybe. It's got these beautiful pinky tones, which again are going to pick out the pinks and the mauvey tones in the succulent, and I'm going to try and get them as much underneath the succulent as possible. Excuse my phone wobbling around a little bit, it's just got very windy all of a sudden. Right, I think that's a lovely little spring display, and that'll look fantastic this springtime. So, things to remember about Sempervivum. They are predominantly an outdoor plant, so if you hope to put them indoors, they might get fungal infections or mildew. So it's not to say they can't put them indoors. I've got one indoors that's part of a display with other succulents that can't go outdoors, but I tend to keep it in the kitchen diner where there's a lot of airflow. The windows very often open, and it gets lots of sun. Also, if it's a mild day, I'll put it outside for a few hours and then bring it in again. But obviously the other plants that are weathered don't like the frost, don't like very cold weather, so I can't leave it outdoors. But predominantly outdoor plant. The other thing is, the poorer the soil, the better. So if you've got a rockery, or you've got a lot of shale, or you've got a lot of stone, or you've got even rubble from previous building work, like what happened to me, this will thrive no problem. You don't need to add to compost, you don't need to feed it too much. They pretty much thrive on neglect. So you want to make sure they've got plenty of drainage. You want to make sure there's stones or pebbles underneath the leaves so that they can really keep the moisture away from these leaves, and you want to keep it outdoors. They love sun, so choose the sunniest part of your garden as you possibly can. If you put it in a shady part of the garden, it's not going to survive there. But other than this, a beautiful hardy plant, always a crowd pleaser, and really easy to care for. So there you go, and survives the British weather like a true northerner. So this is where I say goodbye to you. I hope you really enjoyed this episode, and please do give me a thumbs up if you liked what you saw. I'm the Potty Plant Lady. Bye.